you're going to find this hard to believe. I know it. But apparently people in the White House were talking about when Joe Biden wins a second term, we got to put him in a wheelchair. Because he should be in a wheelchair now, but the optics will look bad. So we're going to make him special shoes that will actually help him stand up. Okay. This is a problem. Now, this was shocking to me, Stu, but apparently Joe Biden needed a wheelchair and somebody to push him around in it.
That's the report today. From the new book.
New book.
It's the Jake Tapper, Alex Thompson book.
Yeah. Who Jake was completely surprised by all of this.
Was he?
He was completely surprised. Yeah, he was like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I should write a book real quick." You know, so he was completely caught off guard. Nobody in the media or who are writing these books had any idea that Joe Biden wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, wasn't playing basketball every afternoon. They had no idea. You know, the last time they saw him, he was sharper than the sharpest guy they've ever seen.
I know. The thing that was devastating to me was I was convinced he was just running circles around his 25-year-old staffers.
Yeah.
And then to learn that actually he wasn't running around anything because they needed to put him on a chair with wheels was a disappointing awakening.
You know, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with somebody in a wheelchair. I own FDR's wheelchair, and I think I bought it for the museum because I think it should be the symbol of us winning World War II. Now, he hit it. I mean, the reason why the Resolute desk has that little door in the front, you know, that John was, you know, opening up, and that picture with John F. Kennedy and his son opening up the door underneath the desk, that was never there. That was not part of the Resolute desk. FDR had that installed because that desk was in the map room where he used to do his fireside chats, and he didn't want anybody taking pictures of him in the wheelchair or his legs, and so you could see it until they put the door there, and they finished the door, you know, just in time for him to die. So he never used it. But he was embarrassed by the wheelchair. I think that was his greatest strength. The guy couldn't walk, and yet he did. The guy, I mean, he worked so hard with his son every day. Imagine the strength that it took in his upper body and his son's upper body. He would hold on to his son's arm. His son would just put his arm out straight, and they rehearsed every day. They worked out so they could do this. So the son could look like he wasn't putting any effort into it. He was just helping his dad. You know, here, grab onto my arm, Dad. And all of the son's strength of that one forearm and FDR grabbing onto his arm, that's what held him upright. And then his son had to look like it was no big deal as FDR took all of his upper body strength to swing his legs out so he could walk because he had no power below the waist. That is incredible, as they were gassing people that were undesirable or had no quality of life because they had a wooden leg or they had crutches, let alone a wheelchair. The guy who was in the wheelchair beat Hitler. That's fantastic. So I think it's a sign of strength at times. And if you need to be in a wheelchair, you need to be in a wheelchair. And I think it would be embarrassing, you know, as you get older, you'd be like, I don't need this chair. You know, you become that grumpy old man. But the problem here is that no one in the White House said anything about it. They literally made special shoes so he could stand. Okay. All right. And then they were talking about after the election, he's got to go into a wheelchair because he can't walk anymore.
Again, a lie. Again, them lying to get themselves through this election.
Correct.
That's the theme here and why it's really important. It's not important that a guy has to go in a wheelchair in his 80s.
Who cares?
Right.
I hope I'm not, but I might be in a wheelchair when I'm 80. I might be 80? In a coffin.
Good God, if you see 80, I'll be stunned. You won't even be able to see 80 from like a peak near where you are in the distance.
I don't think we need to revel in this. You seem to be like counting the salary right now, and then I take over his show.
What's fascinating about this is not that he's going into a wheelchair. Again, like that's a normal human development. And the fact that we live long enough to get to a point where we need a wheelchair for lifelong wear and tear. Hey, great. It's that they lied to us over and over and over again. In fact, the book talks about one of the lies, and it's hard to see how they could have been any more blatant about what was happening here. I love this. Throughout 2024, Biden aides told reporters that the president's halting walk was partly the result of him fracturing his foot in November 2020 and then refusing to consistently wear his walking boot. In short, they said Biden was being undone by his own vigor.
Oh my gosh.
That's an awesome paragraph.
Oh my, I want that framed. I want that framed. That is, if that's not the press in a nutshell, if that's not our political parties in a nutshell, you're so stupid.
But there is a line here. I don't know. I'm struggling with it a little bit. It's incredible. First of all, how did you believe that?
You didn't.
But there's a line here to me, because the media always is going to have this pathetic excuse of just saying, well, we were told this by the aides in the White House and we reported it. And they're going to be able to say that, and probably with some accuracy. It's probably what happened, right? The aides probably did just tell them that, and they just wrote it. And that's pathetic, and we should criticize their job performance, right?
Well,
that's one part of this.
Let me just say, in defense of some of the reporters that didn't have, eyewitness, you were on the edges and you couldn't see in.
Sure.
If that's all that you're given, you could speculate, but you can't print that as a news story that he can't walk. He should be in a wheelchair. You could speculate, you can comment on it, but you'd have no evidence as a reporter.
Theoretically, follow up and be persistent. If you wanted a real answer, you could do your job better. By the way, as I've noted multiple times, Alex Thompson, the co-author of the book with Jake Tapper, was one of those reporters who was doing that at the actual time.
Why would he pick Jake Tapper? I guess because Jake Tapper is the only one with any credibility that's left on, for CNN, for those who are still watching CNN.
I think it's probably a big name. I don't think everyone knows Alex, which they should. So they think and look, I think that helps.
But nobody knew Michael Schellenberger.
No, it's true.
Now Michael is a big name because, and he didn't go, hey, Jake.
No, I
know you were part of the problem, but
I don't know. I mean, the Jake thing is a separate part of this, because I think it's interesting what happens with a book like this. And this is what I don't want to necessarily focus only on the media in the story, because with Tapper, he comes out and he was not the worst offender of this, by the way, when we went through that period. I mean, people like Joe Scarborough, they don't write this book, right? Yes. He lied every day as a central part of his show about this topic. And he doesn't come out and write the book, and everyone kind of just forgets about it. Where Tapper does write the book, and now he's going to be hit over the head over and over and over again because of the one or two clips that are out there, which I would say are somewhat offensive.
So I wouldn't mind having Jake, because they asked, do you want to have Jake Tapper on? I'm like, no. But maybe I would. I would like to take that approach and just talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Because it is one thing, most people just never admit it. And I don't think, has Jake Tapper admitted that, we really did a lousy job?
I don't know. I would say this book kind of says that.
I'm going to have to, when it comes to reading that, I'm going to have Grok read that book for me.
Yeah. I want to read the book. I do. I actually think I'm hopeful, especially with Alex's reporting through this period. Again, we're learning about this wheelchair story from this book.
Yes.
I actually have some hope that there will be something in there. And, I think we do have this thing.
I want to know about the press. I want to know who actually did know, but was keeping it quiet because we can't let Trump win.
I want to know that too. However, it's my second priority. My first priority is I want to know every little bit of the people in the White House who are our employees.
True.
Lying to the press about this. The press.
Yeah, you're right. That is a bigger priority.
I think so. I think there is legitimate
protect and defend the
of
Constitution.
Criminal activity done by them. Bad reporting is bad reporting, and those people should be punished for their job performance when they have bad. But that's different from what they did in the White House. We went through a period where we basically had no president. for a couple of years, and we were constantly being lied to by government employees, which every one of their text messages is part of the government record.
No, this is what really makes me so angry. This is, I'm telling you, if Pam Bondi, and it's, I don't think it's her fault. I think it's that the DOJ is so riddled with leftists that they just can't do anything right now. You know, they're still waiting for some more people to be appointed by Congress or the Senate. And I don't know if she has the people around her. This is what I'm hearing, that she just doesn't have the people around her yet to really make any big progress because it is so bogged down with statists and leftists.
Well, we're hearing that from high levels in the government. Like this is in the Trump administration.
Yes,
people who are saying, "Hey, this is not Pam's issue."
Right.
So that might be true.
But if they don't fix that, and the president doesn't come out and start to say, "Here's why no progress is being made on these things," because this should be investigated. I don't know if anybody could go to jail over this. I mean, I would like it if they've broken a law. And I don't know what law that would be.
Right.
But they hid this stuff. And more importantly than hiding it are who was it that used the AutoPin? If you look at if you look at all of the things that were signed by AutoPin, as he started to decline, the last year and a half, the AutoPin was almost exclusively used. Well, who was feeding those in? What was
That's
the system?
What I'm talking about.
He said to Jake Tapper in one interview, "I didn't do that." Yes, you did today, sir. No, I didn't do that. You did today, sir. You just signed it, and he had no idea. No idea. Well, who was doing it? That's what I want to know, and that person should go to jail.
Right, because, how many times, Glenn, have you done shows about what happened with Woodrow Wilson back in the day? I mean, first of all, that number is too high to calculate.
Yeah.
But I mean, specifically on the fact that he wasn't even president for a while. His wife was running the show. He had a stroke, and he was incapacitated.
He had a stroke. He was giving a speech in California. He had a stroke in the middle of it. Just stopped talking, and everybody's like, "What is going on?" Kind of like
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. Just stopped talking. And so they put him on a train. They bring him back to Washington. They put him up in the White House because he's had a massive stroke. He can't communicate. He can't do anything. They're not even sure he could understand anything. His wife hid it and left him up in the bedroom, and she just kind of took over for a while. And she would attend all of the meetings and say, "My husband is just in bed. He's sick, but he wanted me to attend and take notes." She would take notes and then go up, talk to a man who really wasn't there, and then say, so here's what he wants to do. And then take the bills up to him, put his hand on the pen, and then she would sign it.
The original auto pen.
Yeah, the original auto pen. Yeah. That's how Woodrow Wilson worked in the last year. But it was his own party that ratted him out.
Yeah.
It was his own party because he was going to run for another term, a third term. And his party was like, "We haven't even seen the president. We need to see the president."
Minor issue.
Yeah, and they would keep coming over, and then she's like, "No, he's just having a bad day." And finally they said, "We're exposing this. Whatever's going on, you're going to be in trouble." And so she brought him down, and he did fairly well, but they knew he wasn't really in charge of his faculties. And she said he's going to run for another term, and they said no, he's not. He's not going to run.
Yeah.
But it was them. It was the Democrats that did it.
Yeah, and that's huge.
Right.
But what I think here, when you think about this, is like that's 100 years ago, right? This just happened. This is not a historical, can you believe this could happen in our country?
No.
This just occurred right here.
Right.
And if we do not do something about it now,
it will occur over and over again.
God only knows what could happen.
This is not a figurehead position. The president is the one who is the commander-in-chief, makes the decision. The buck stops with him. If you don't know who is at the end of that actually making the decisions, you don't have a country. You really do have an oligarchy where powerful people behind the scenes are the ones pulling all of the strings and levers.